Greetings. I'm Jeff Liebmann, consulting minister at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Smithton, and this is another in our series of online sermons that we're offering to you. This sermon is titled, Setting a Course. For our chalice lighting, we'll have these opening words. Roman philosopher Seneca the Younger is quoted as writing, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." Now he likely did not mean to reject the value of the occasional stroll, or taking time to wander through portions of our lives in search of meaning and purpose. But as Roman playwright Terence put it 100 years earlier, fortune favors the strong. Perhaps a bold vision of the future is enough to help us set our course among the tides and currents of the oceans of life. A reflection reading today comes from Henry David Thoreau's work titled Cape Cod. The beach was also strewn with beautiful sea jellies, which the wreckers called sun squall, one of the lowest forms of animal life, some white, some wine-colored, and a foot in diameter. I at first thought that they were a tender part of some marine monster which the storm or some other foe had mangled. What right has the sea to bear in its bosom such tender things as sea jellies and mosses, when it has such a boisterous shore that the stoutest fabrics are wrecked against it? Strange that it should undertake to dandle such delicate children in its arm. I did not at first recognize these for the same which I had formerly seen in myriads in Boston Harbor, rising with a waving motion to the surface, as if to meet the sun, and discoloring the waters far and wide, so that I seemed to be sailing through a mere sunfish soup. They say that when you endeavor to take one up, it will spill over the other side of your hand like quicksilver. Before the land rose out of the ocean and became dry land, chaos reigned. And between high and low water mark, where she is partially disrobed and rising, a sort of chaos reigns still, which only anomalous creatures can inhabit. Mackerel gulls were all the while flying over our heads, and amid the breakers, sometimes two white ones pursuing a black one, quite at home in the storm, though they are as delicate organizations as sea jellies and mosses. And we saw that they were adapted to their circumstances rather by their spirits than their bodies. Theirs must be an essentially wilder, that is, less human nature than that of larks and robins. Their note was like the sound of some vibrating metal, and harmonized well with the scenery and the roar of the surf, as if one had rudely touched the strings of the lyre, whichever lies on the shore, a ragged shred of ocean music tossed along the spray. But if I were required to name a sound, the remembrance of which most perfectly revives the impression which the beach has made, it would be the dreary peep of the piping plover, which haunts there. Their voices, too, are heard as a fugacious part in the dirge which is ever played along the shore for those mariners who have been lost in the deep since it first was created. But through all this dreariness we seemed to have a pure and unqualified strain of eternal melody, for always the same strain which is a dirge to one household is a morning song of rejoicing to another. Steward, is one of those fascinating words that acquired a multitude of meanings over the centuries. Today, steward generally means one who carefully and responsibly manages something entrusted to their care. Appearing first in early Middle English, the styward cared for the pig pens, the ward of the sty. In time, people applied the term to those employed in large households or estates to manage domestic concerns such as the supervision of servants, the collection of rents, and the keeping of accounts. As civilization and technology expanded, steward took on the new role of the naval officer in charge of the officers' quarters and mess on board the ship. The word later became applied to all employees on ships, trains, buses, and airplanes responsible for the comfort of the passengers, taking orders for or distributing food. In the early 20th century America, the shop steward became the union representative responsible for dealing with management. High-quality restaurants and resorts still employ wine stewards, quite a long way from tending the pig's sty. Today, stewardship expands even further. The Earth Charter resulted from a worldwide cross-cultural dialogue on common goals and shared values. The project began as a United Nations effort, but was carried forward and completed by a global civic society initiative. Launched in 2000 by the Earth Charter Commission, an independent international entity, the work is a declaration of fundamental ethical principles for building a just, sustainable, and peaceful global society in the 21st century. The Charter asserts that common destiny beckons us to seek a new beginning. This requires a change of mind and heart, a new sense of global interdependence and universal responsibility. In a sense, the Earth Charter stakes the claim that every person is a steward of every community and of our entire planet. Every year, the delegates at the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association select a study action issue for a 4-year process of examination. The issue selected in 2008 and currently under review among our congregations, ethical eating, may seem from its title to concern only issues of meat consumption and vegetarian or vegan diets. We are certainly not the first religious organization to discuss the production, distribution, and use of food. But the ethical eating study action issue goes far beyond this issue to include the broad aspects of planetary stewardship. For instance, many people employ food choices while others remain hungry. The food industry produces wealth, but small farmers and farm workers are often poor. Food production and transportation contribute to many environmental problems. The scope of the discussion encompasses a wide range of stewardship issues, many of which bear relevance as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Earth Day this year in 2010. So let's briefly review some of these issues. Climate change.